Hi, we are going to be talking about a built-in data structure called tuples in this video. It's going to be a very useful data structure that for the rest of the course. So, tuples, what are tuples? So in Python, and actually also in math, a tuple is just a sequence of elements. So let me just show you a quick example of that. So that's I'm defining a variable, call it t for short for tuples, and instead of just a single number, I can give it a sequence of things, like a float here, or a 30, sorry, a string, etc. Okay, so that's a sequence of things. That's all a tuple is. Now, sometimes for readability or for maybe for precedence reason, you might want to put tuples in parentheses, but they are really optional. Okay, so let me just run this. I'm going to print out tuple, and I'm going to print out, sorry, I'm going to print out t. I'm going to print out the type of t. Do this. All right, so this is t is the tuple we just defined. And then the type is a class tuple. So it's not just an integer, it's not just a string, it's a sequence of things. That is a tuple. Okay. Now, if it sounds like a list, something that we learned before, well, that's because they are quite similar to each other. Okay. So for example, each element in a tuple can be accessed by its index, and the index starts at, you guess it, 0. So in this case, there are 3 elements. This should print out the first one, second one, and the third element in the tuple. Okay, there. So first element, second element, third element. If you go beyond that, it will throw an index out of bound error, right? Another thing, very useful thing that we can do with a tuple, just like we can with a list, is that we can unpack them. And that means, in this case, let me take this out first. Unpacking, this means we can take each element from the tuple in order and assign them to a particular name. Okay, so in this case, our tuple has 3 things. So, and we're assigning the tuple to 3 variables or 3 names. So A should get 10, B should get 20.0, C should get 30. So let's make sure that is the case. And there, right? We print out A, B, C. That's 10, 20, and 30. Okay, so unpacking is it's quite it's actually something quite handy. All right, so and then there are other things that in list that you can also do with a tuple. Now, one thing you cannot do that you can do with a list, but not with tuple, is that you cannot change an element in the tuple because the tuple is immutable. We learned another thing that was immutable, that is immutable, and that is string. So tuple is very much like an immutable list. So tuple is really a lot simpler than a list. Once you can change things, things can get complicated. With the tuple, you cannot change it. So for an example, if we want to change it, like we want to do it here, we want to change the first element of the tuple t. Well, no, we cannot do that because it says tuple object does not support item assignment. We cannot change an item in a tuple. Okay. All right. So, okay, why do we want to use tuples? Why can't we just use lists for everything if they're so similar and tuple cannot be changed? Well, their tuple can be very useful for a certain purpose. So what I um, find it useful for is really for grouping a small number of related things, and I want to explicitly name all of these things. And these things may or may not be the same type. Okay, so for example, when a function wants to return multiple pieces of information, such as a person's weight, a person's height, and their hair color, the function can return a tuple of those three things, which is very, very convenient. The C++ or Java programmers would love this feature because in those languages, functions cannot easily return multiple things. But in Python, you can. It's very, very easy. It's built right into the language. Now, so what is list good for? Well, we've already seen it, what it's good for, but we can do a little quick review. This is useful for storing perhaps a large number of values. And these values are usually the same type. They don't have to be, but they usually are, a list of numbers, a list of strings, etc. And then we want to do further processing with this list, right? So for example, a list of, daily average temperatures in a year. Well, that's a lot of them, right? Hundreds of them. And they're all numbers, right? And we probably want to do some other processing with it, with them, like, figure out the average, the standard deviation, and, what's the average temperature for a particular season, a particular month, things like that. So lists are good for things like that. So both tuple and list are have their use case in Python. Okay, that's it.